Hi, sanibonani ninjani emakhaya. I hope everyone is well and safe at home. For the sake of time, we will continue with our segment, and I'm happy it's been recorded for any of our colleagues who might miss this particular one. At least there's an opportunity that they might catch up on the recording. But I'm seeing that the numbers are increasing in terms of attendees. My name is Sesethu Sitsamba, an alumni from Enactus UKZN, based in Durban, a CEO of a company called Waazania Aroma, a company really that manufactures and distributes cosmetics like perfumes, tissue oils, and soaps. But today is not about me. Today is about the segment and the topic that we've got, which is the entrepreneurial landscape. The entrepreneurial landscape, the topic comes at a very hard time for us as South Africans. It comes at a time whereby we've suffered due to COVID, and now recently in Durban or in KZN and Gauteng, we've experienced quite a lot of unrest. So that unrest will have a ripple effect on our entrepreneurial landscape. But I'm not one to dive much into the topic. We do have our esteemed panelists who will do their presentations to us on the topic, the entrepreneurial landscape in South Africa. How our section will be, it'll be divided into introducing the speakers for the day or our panelists for the day, allowing them an opportunity to present whatever they've prepared for us, and then we'll allow for question and answers. Then we'll take it from there. So on our panelists today, we've got two powerful brains. I believe they are founding members of SAIF. Mr. Thami Zondi hails from KZN and is a founding member of Enactus or SAIF UKZN, and we've got Toni Gumede, who is an alumni of the University of Free State. But just to give a bit of a profile or an executive profile on our speakers, because we must learn to appreciate as well the gravitas and the journey which our speakers have traversed. Hence, it warrants them to be our panelists today. I'm happy at their contribution locally and internationally when it comes to youth development, as well as the entrepreneurial development in our country, locally and internationally. So I'll start by introducing Toni Gumede. She's got 14 years experience in the stakeholder relation and social facilitation management and corporate affairs, both in reputation management of the country's brand and in the energy and infrastructure development space. She also leads a multidisciplinary team in the delivery of integrated multi-stakeholder collaboration projects to profile South Africa as a globally competitive brand, both locally and internationally. She has a senior management experience in profiling the country's tourism industry assets, both domestically and internationally. Her education credentials: she studied at the University of Free State, having graduated with a Bachelor of Social Sciences, where she completed as well a postgraduate certificate in project management, and later attained what we call an enterprise risk management from the business school. She is currently working to complete a master's in development studies. She has addressed in various international, local, and international platforms as a speaker or panelist, and some of the highlights includes Marketing Advancement Communication in Education Congress, Junior Chamber International South Africa Chapter Congress, Breaking Down Borders Africa Youth Summit. So these are some of the highlights or the events where she was contributing either as a speaker or as a panelist. She's passionate about active citizenship, and she is a champion of the Child Cancer Foundation and supports the Bread Line Africa as a long-term commitment. Most importantly, Toni is an alumni of the University of Free State, having represented the country at the Nationals and represented the country in the USA in the year 2005. With that being said, I would like to introduce our second speaker, Mr. Thami Zondi. Mr. Thami Zondi is a financial analyst by profession. He's a youth leader based in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. He works as the Director of Youth Economic Empowerment within the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. Having graduated at UKZN with BCom Accounting, he holds also a Master's of Business Administration from Menkosa with specialization in investment and portfolio management. He completed his second master's degree from Leeds University in the UK, where he mastered social science in leadership and change management. Some of his post-graduation qualification in the area of investment, which includes policy development and management, as well as project management, amongst other qualifications that Mr. Zondi has got. He's also currently a candidate of Chartered Financial Analyst, which is the CFA program. He has an extensive experience when it comes to leadership, and he's got credentials in leadership on his name. And these are the following, leadership credentials that he's got. He was the executive member of the Convocation of the University of KwaZulu-Natal in the year 2006 to 2012. He was a member of various University of KwaZulu-Natal a member of the various University of KwaZulu-Natal Council Committee, namely the Staffing Committee, Resourcing Planning Committee, and the Honorary Degree Committee from the year 2006 to 2012. He's been a board member of the famous Youth Durban Radio station, which is the Durban Youth Radio station from the year 2019 to 2011. He's a previous chairperson of the KwaZulu-Natal Youth Designer. Also, he's been an executive producer of the international acclaimed movie Undiscovered in 2018, an executive producer of many televised programs in South Africa, which is GOM, National Music Show, the MTV Base, academic associate of the Creative Arts College, chairperson of the Independent Pharmacies Entrepreneurial Program, amongst other credentials and accolades that Mr. Zondi has. Mr. Zondi obtained a small business development certificate from the Japan International Cooperative Agency, which is based in Japan, and other esteemed credentials and academic considerations from countries like Germany, the Czech Republic, Japan, Norway, China, and Tanzania, and Zambia, to mention just a few. So I'm happy to really to introduce the two panelists today who have traversed, as I've said, and we've got vast experience. But really the topic today is about the entrepreneurial landscape in South Africa. So without wasting time, I'd like to give Toni Gumede an opportunity to present what she has prepared for us.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's always a very inspiring platform to be engaging with great, especially young minds in this space in terms of sharing innovative ideas, and always with the purpose to make our immediate spaces better. And the past few weeks perhaps have best illustrated the fact that a lot of success can be and may well be achieved in isolated format in a space. But if there is not a collective betterment or a betterment of the collective, you are always awaiting for some sort of discomfort or spurt of whatever negativity may impact emanating from the wounds that exist in the rest of society. So I think one of the ways a lot has not changed in terms of what the power of entrepreneurship and what it can do in economy, but also to ensure that our trajectory is less one where the government is solely concerned with the responsibility to make things better for the entrepreneurship environment to thrive. Because I think we can probably likely agree today that if the success of entrepreneurs is to be realized, it surely cannot be something that can be done by and from the effort of the state alone. So I think I have a view that says there needs to be a concerted, intentional, collective effort. No part of society must see itself as not responsible to participate in the value chain of empowering entrepreneurs in whichever way that is possible within the space. So my premise is that, one, this has to be a collective and intentional effort. It cannot be a responsibility of the state. And yes, the state has responsibilities that are quite key, especially when it comes to business support and funding entities that are entrusted with empowering entrepreneurs in some way, especially at the stage of startup, most importantly. And I think we know that there's businesses closed down more than they did in 2019 year on year, and that's a serious concern. And one of the things I think, in terms of it being a collective responsibility, one, there has to be a responsibility beyond the state, and that I'm going to name specifically corporate South Africa has to, within its responsibility inherent in the business model, must be less of what is traditional charity and more of what is material impact on enterprise development. Because I think how I've seen it in the past 10 to 15 years, and I've worked with various South African corporates before, from a collaboration point of view, it's enterprise development and support is often a tick box exercise that must be done. Let's find a way to do it somehow before the financial year closes. And I think perhaps I'll hold it there for now.
Okay, beautiful. Thanks, Toni, for your opening remarks. Really, just to afford some of key to what you've said is the collective efforts for us really to move forward and to pave a sustainable entrepreneurial landscape. It's important that we pool as much knowledge as possible, we pool as much resources as possible, and what is key is that collective, the combined, the unity that is required. So the silos mentality and people having to conquer and cement themselves in silos is not going to work in terms of us really solidifying our entrepreneurial gains. I'm also happy at the fact that it doesn't have to really depend on government to be the enabler and the anchor of entrepreneurship. It lays upon every individual, because job creation or the unemployment rate that we have in the country is not only a problem of government, but it's a collective responsibility. It's a societal problem, and entrepreneurship on its own, it's the art of solving a problem. So really, if we are to be successful, we need to solve these problems, and it lies upon people to solve those problems and be entrepreneurially inclined. So thanks greatly, Toni, for your opening remarks. I'll give Mr. Thami Zondi an opportunity as well to have his opening remarks. I'm educated that as well you will touch on the continent as well, Mr. Thami Zondi, not only in South Africa, but probably benchmarking with other countries in Africa and what they are doing. We are seeing a great story in the likes of Rwanda when it comes to techno advances. So probably if we can benchmark and touch base with what young people are doing in other foreign countries, that would assist. So Mr. Thami, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Setu, and greetings to your attendees and everyone joining this webinar. It is an honor indeed as a SIFE alumni. I use the term SIFE, and then the attendees will know my era, in which era I served. So as a SIFE alumni, back in the early 2000s, it is an honor to come onto this platform and share, the entrepreneurial landscape in our country, and of course, share with our attendees and current SIFE students and everybody that is still part of this entrepreneurship work, and to say, how do we continue using entrepreneurship to change the world? As we always say at Enactus, I hope you're still holding to that, because we used to say we're changing the world through entrepreneurship. And from my experience as a student in the mid 2000s and up to now, one has really held on to the notion of saying that entrepreneurship can really change the world. Having said that, and coming back to today's topic, will be guided by you, Setu, because you said these are opening remarks. So I don't want to go to town. Let me just state the following in my opening remarks. If we are talking entrepreneurial landscape, I think it is important for us to first understand the statistics around entrepreneurship in our country. And I want to draw a reference to what is called Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, which is the GEM. GEM is a UK-based company that is put together through a number of institutions of higher learning, which in any event, even Enactus is based institutions of higher learning. We must not forget that institutions of higher learning plays a very critical role in making sure that information, statistics, and data that is used to shape entrepreneurship is there. So you've got GEM, and in the country, they work with the likes of what is called SEDA, Small Enterprise Development Agency, which I'll speak to later on beyond the introduction. But SEDA funds the GEM report for South Africa on a yearly basis. Now, these reports have been done over years, but let's stick to the recent one, because I mean, statistics and data is as good as the recent stats. The 2020 GEM report tells you that, and I'm just really going to highlight a few of these points. I mean, if you look at the societal values in South Africa, how many people view entrepreneurship as a way to go, or as something that can add value to economic growth? The latest GEM report shows that the view of many people in society, has really increased. I mean, from as little as we're sitting around 60%, and now we're nearing the 80% mark. So that tells you that most people in our society view entrepreneurship as a societal thing that can increase the economy. Secondly, leave the society, look at individuals. How many individuals are seeing entrepreneurship as something that can be used to create opportunities and create employment? Again, we are seeing increase in terms of that, in that regard as a country. I mean, we're coming way below the 40s, and you touch into Africa. It has been said many a times, okay, now of late, Nigeria has sort of overtaken us, not Nigeria, but rather, yes, Nigeria, in terms of South Africa being the highest economy in the continent. Now, Nigeria is number one, we're number two, and then Egypt is number three. Well, it's debatable, but what I'm saying is we are amongst the top in terms of our economic status as South Africa. But if you look at our entrepreneurship activity, it's small even compared to some of the countries whose economy is not even the fraction of South Africa. But nevertheless, seeing that individual that see opportunities in entrepreneurship is increasing, it's very positive. But then now let's look at saying, how many people from those that were engaged in the latest Global Entrepreneurship Monitor who said they have an intention of going to entrepreneurship. Obvious respondents are part of a particular population, only 11%. So despite that societal feeling, individuals thinking, I'm sure all people that are here, I mean, we can attest to that, individual think entrepreneurship can be a way to go. But if you then ask people, how many of you will take that leap of faith and go into entrepreneurship? Only 11%. So it starts to tell you something. People today are Enactus members, but maybe they still have that thing to say, when I finish here at varsity, I must go and look for employment. Nobody has the guts to say, you know what, let me hold the bull by its horn and start something. So already you've got 11% of people who are willing to take the entrepreneurial risk. But again, if you look at the exit rate, once people have now started entrepreneurship, how much is the exit rate that you are seeing in the country? It is still very large, but it is also promising that in the year of COVID, which was 2020, we saw that the rate decreasing. To say that people that have come into entrepreneurship, they try to stay the longer. And what entails or what pushes people to stay longer is some of the things that constitute our entrepreneurial landscape that we're going to speak about as we continue. I'll end there with my opening remarks.
Hey, Mr. Thami, I thought probably you've started already with your presentation. You guys are already on fire. It's really something. I see this topic is something really at heart, but equally fundamental to the advancement of our community. So, with that being said, those are opening remarks. Mr. Thami, I do agree that psychologically there is a barrier and there is a fear. And, you know, I think within our country, our biggest problem is that we have reduced to entrepreneurship to only umama odayisa emgwaqweni. And when you see umama odayisa emgwaqweni, unaleyo fear ukuthi yazi ngiyoyihluphekisa, but we haven't really deep dive into the understanding and meaning of entrepreneurship. And really, as I've said earlier on, entrepreneurship is the art of solving a problem. So wherever you reside, if the problem is they're building a bridge and there's people who are hungry and you can provide them a quota, you are providing a solution to a problem. And that is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship has got nothing to do with rands and cents. Rands and cents is the aftermath of a solution that you've rendered in your community, or to the problem that you've just seen, that you have just spotted in your community. So really, those are some of the conversations that we need to have, that entrepreneurship has got nothing to do with billions. The fact that you generate billions, it means that your problem is solving a societal problem and it's well sustainable. And then it brings the rands and cents. With that being said, this is Toni. On your side, is there anything that you've prepared that you'd like to expand on in terms of your presentation?
Setu, I don't know, but I see there is a raised hand. I'm not sure how you wish to.
So what we can do is you can deliver whatever you've got. Then we'll combine the Q&A or the hands at a later stage. Let's give you an opportunity. Probably you might answer some of the questions that are being asked, or the hand potentially that has got a question. So you might answer in your presentation. So let's allow the presentation and take hands later.
Yes. Well, I also wanted to say, I think I'm with Thami there in terms of our background and the time frame. And I say that probably because there may be very well alignment in a lot of the ideas and the thoughts that we share, mainly because we come from a similar time frame, and that time frame is the one of the ones who are actually registered for vaccination currently. So you can imagine that was our 5 days then. But I think one of the most important things that I think remain key and are probably more and more important now than before is collaboration. Collaboration amongst entrepreneurs themselves. That's one of the key things. I saw this is now a very operational issue, but I'm learning very consistently to understand that one of the key issues that are operational for an entrepreneur or a business is the fact that we often think the nature or how we structure resources it can be problematic in that it creates a burden. And so collaboration with other businesses is a better way to structure business, for example, than focusing on having a heavy load of human resources. That's one of the key things, and I say this because it keeps on coming up in terms of the networking sessions with business people that I've been participating in the past. I would say, yeah, it's one of the things that became a burden, especially when COVID hit. So collaboration amongst businesses is key, but also I think there's a part that's a very big determinant of the success of entrepreneurs that are local to that space or to us in this country. that is applicable. It is how sold out we are ourselves on services and products that are by our local people. And you could look at it from a community level. You could look at it at a national level. You could even look at it at an international level. I think there's a lot to be said about how much we believe in ourselves as a determinant of the choice, the everyday basic choices that we make as consumers, also that can contribute to the success of the entrepreneurs amongst us in our communities and in our country. And one really has to take a very personal reflection to actually practicalize this or let it show it to themselves. If I can ask, I mean, we've got about 80 people here in this session. If I would ask if we can all think of the last 5 items or services that we had to pay somebody else for. Now the question is, who did you pay for that? To render that service or to buy that product? Does that feed into what we say when we speak about entrepreneurship? That's one of the most powerful ways to protect and support entrepreneurs. We all of us, anyone to live, you spend money every day on services and products. Do we choose our local products when we make purchases? And I think that's one of the very important things. And so often when I've been always involved in spaces that were always trying to promote pride and patriotism. And I think we have associated those two terms, pride and patriotism. We have limited their association to fluffy feelings about one's country. I think it needs to be reflected for us to claim pride in who we are as a nation and who we are as Africans, who we are as however you identify yourself. That is only true if it is practiced and translates in your everyday purchase decisions. And for me, I think we need to bring that closer to ourselves and the people around us to get to understand that we cannot claim to be proudly African, proudly South African, proudly whatever you are, because we have the right to be whatever on the basis of the South African Constitution. Does it translate to your decision making on a daily? And that's why I think there are many levels where there's a responsibility for entrepreneurship to successfully translate us into a better economy. It lies, yes, there's a responsibility of the state, there's a responsibility of corporate South Africa, there's a responsibility of entrepreneurs themselves to be coming up with innovations that are actually solving the problems we do have. That's very key, obviously. But then there's a responsibility on the everyday, ordinary South African as well. And that is also a level of collaboration. And so it's perhaps consciousness that we need to raise for people to be able to personalize this better and better for themselves.
No, beautiful, Toni. Thanks greatly for that. Really what echoes is the unity, the collaborative efforts, the sharing of skills and expertise amongst entrepreneurs. But important as well is once the product is there, the service is there, we do need the support. So it's the consciousness and the consumer psychology in not viewing what is being offered by our local entrepreneurs as inferior, but really shifting our buying patterns and supporting them, because really the success of their businesses lies and relies with our buying or purchasing power. So thanks greatly for that, Toni. With that being said, Mr. Zondi, on your side, sir.
Thank you so much, Setu. Let me start by echoing the 2 points that Toni has already raised. She started on the whole issue of collaboration. I work for government. The current government administration is very big on what you call social compact, in saying that things cannot only be done by government. And if we speak of social compact, we speak of civil society, which is where NGOs and a number of organizations fit in. We speak of business, organized business. We speak of labor. We speak of government. So if we are to achieve anything, including in our entrepreneurial landscape, if we are to make changes and we get more people not only to be entrepreneurs, but to be successful entrepreneurs, we need a strong social compact. So I wanted to echo that. But secondly, what you just raised now in the whole issue of saying, it's no use. There's a saying that I used to say as a SCIF or an Enactus student. I used to say, to be in business and have no business is like not being in business. It's just the rhetoric. People go to CIPC. In those days, it was CIPRO. They register like, hey, I got a business. But to be in business and have no business is like not being in business. So you are only in business when you've got a business that you are servicing and there's money coming in. Now, for that to happen, there must be people who believe in your products and people who believe in your services. But here's the catch. We shouldn't be feeling sorry for each other just because you're South African, that I must buy, your shabby services. It is for entrepreneurs to up the game, which is why, given the stats that I gave you in my opening remarks, then I wanted to pick up with just those 2 points coming out of Toni. I then wanted to pick up to say, one of the things that then comes strongly on the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor is the early stage entrepreneurship. How soon do people start to be entrepreneurs? Do people become entrepreneurs just because they went to university, they're not getting employment, and then they're saying, let me try this thing called entrepreneurship as a way out? Or we are instilling this thing of entrepreneurship so much so that they start early to be entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, in our entrepreneurial landscape as things stands, our early starting or our percentage of early starters is still very low, even lower than some of the countries in Africa that we believe have got a smaller economy than us. I spoke of Nigeria earlier on to say that previously we used to be the giant of African economy. Nigeria has overtaken us. Yes, they've got reserves, that natural endowments that have helped them to get there. But one of the things that has really pushed them is the entrepreneurial activity. Somebody starts something. We know we've got Nigerian brothers that are here in South Africa. They're doing business. Yes, there's other things that we can talk about, and that's not a platform for that. But primarily, when they come here, they're not coming here to look for employment. They come here to start business. That shows you that they start entrepreneurial activity early, and that is important. Hence, I will then bring a couple of issues on board. One, entrepreneurship in schools. And I'm not talking tertiary institutions. I'm talking schools. I'm talking primary. I'm talking high schools. When I was in school, we had something called commerce societies. Where are those things? Enactus alumni that are here on this platform, and those that are still students who are part of Enactus in universities, what are they doing to go back to their schools and collaborate with schools and inculcate the culture of entrepreneurship? But secondly, as you move out of school, then when you get to universities, that is why you need your Enactus, you need your BMFs, you need all these organizations. There is no competition. I believe there is no competition when it comes to us strengthening the entrepreneurial landscape. It goes back to what Toni said again, the collaboration. Yes, she was talking more on the private sector coming on board, but I'm saying at that level, we need to also use our tertiary institutions. There is no, I can tell you from experience, I'm telling you attendees, there is no best time to start your business than when you are still a student. Your troubles are less, and you just have to go to learn. I'm not saying you don't have troubles, but you just have to go to learn. You've got a free internet at learn. You see, right now I'm using my own internet. I'm at home. I must pay for my Wi-Fi. You know, when you're in university, you can start doing things
you know, at a small scale. By the time you finish, then you've got something that you can take out to the world. If you do that, then you'll provide a quality product or a quality service. That's therefore, as Toni was saying, then South Africans will then be willing to support you. And then from there, we can then say, we've got a group of entrepreneurs that really need support from the social compact that I spoke about. And then we can start speaking on our entrepreneurial landscape search to say that how much of the entrepreneurship support interventions are there? You know, are they enough? Because before we start lamenting, let's get the basics in order first and say we do have entrepreneurs who know what they want to do. The culture has been inculcated early. They started entrepreneurship early. Now let's talk about the support mechanism. And as we go ahead and guided by you, I don't want to talk a lot, but then I can talk to some of those support mechanisms. Maybe as we even draw to a close, I'll be guided by you, but I'll end it there for now.
Okay, no, beautiful, Thami. Thanks, Mr. Zondi, for your presentation. I see that we do have two questions. One talks about foreign investors. So the writer is asking Toni that with the current or the recent unrest, do you see any possibilities of potential foreign investors looking into our country? Do you see any possibilities of foreign investors, or is our image tainted completely?
Perhaps just to talk to that, to the question that is being presented. Look, I think the truth is, it takes so long to build a reputation that positions us as a country as a competitive destination to attract investment. And even then, it's not a once-off effort. It's a concerted effort by multiple sectors with very intentional efforts to align. I've worked for a very long time in the public sector, in particular SOEs, and the last SOE I worked at was Brand South Africa, that was directly involved with creating the alignment in all the different touch points that get to present themselves to seek investment for South Africa. And even that role, I think it's important to also stress this part first, that there is a responsibility beyond the president, beyond the investment promotion agencies, beyond every organization that goes to present South Africa as a favorable destination for foreign investment in particular. There's a part of this that says the impression that is created about our country, and perhaps the last week and a half or so, well, when I say good illustration, I mean they illustrate very well the point that anything, anyone, any sector can create the impression of who South Africa is. South Africa, we are a country that has so many aspects, so many sectors, so many spheres. The most important perception is created by anyone sitting in front of someone who needs to build an impression and perhaps at some point in time make a decision to invest or not to invest. You could be sitting on your private, very private family holiday with no responsibility, or not even working for the private sector or any organization that has the responsibility to seek investment. And at that point in time that you are on holiday in whichever country you may find yourself in, even if you are not necessarily in another country, you are in front of you conversing with someone who is building an impression about this country, who's not from this country. At that moment, and this is something I think we all need to understand as South Africans, all 50, however million of us there are now. At that moment of contact with the person, not from this country, you are South Africa in that moment. Regardless whether you were given a mandate by the government or not. So we build an impression of this country at every point in contact that we make. So I think we need to check ourselves as well and be aware of that power and responsibility that we have. Every country tries to sell itself as an investment destination. It's a global market. That's what it is. So obviously, there are entities you wouldn't expect to be underselling or speaking some things that may be unfavorable. Their job, they get paid to do that. I was once working in such an environment. So understand that investors are well aware that when people who have the responsibility to speak good about a country speak good about the country and try to sell it in order to attract investment, they are saying nice things so that people can come to South Africa. The real information is going to come from that contact with a South African, and it could very well be somebody stamping a passport at immigration when the person arrives in this country. And you know, sometimes how it has been, or the reputation that was not so pleasant, that was built in that kind of environment where people stamp your passport without barely acknowledging who you are, just like press and go, press and go. And that is the real moment to affirm if what has been sold to that person about the country is true or not. That's how people would be able to get to describing, no, these are warm people. It's not because of the government pamphlet that they read about the beautiful, warm country. It's because they met you and I that they decide that South African people are warm or not. Now, having said that, of course, there's discomfort and there will be doubt, rightfully so, in the mind of a foreign investor upon looking at what happened the past few days. Let's be real, that is the truth. Is what happens. Incidents happen. There's no country without unpleasant or unfavorable or undesirable incident of whatever nature. What's important is, how do you rise from it? We as a country have gone through some of the worst times than a lot of countries, politically speaking, and speaking from a human rights perspective. But with intentional, concerted effort, we managed to build the reputation. We still managed to attract the foreign investors. There was a time where people would say, oh, this country is going to the pits. I'm leaving, honey. I'm going to Australia. Even during that time, we still attracted foreign investment. And again, we shall do so, because we are a country that is built on institutions. We are a country that is built on a democracy that is birthed by the Constitution. And so things will happen. People will come, people will go, but the country will stand. And I believe very firmly that we will come out of this. And I haven't heard a big, massive declaration of de-investment just because of last week or the week before. And I'm not saying there isn't discomfort in people's minds, but what I am saying is we haven't suddenly become the worst country to invest in because of what happened. And it will take work. But I think we've proven at more than 1 or 2 points in time that we are able to get over it's almost as if the way I view it now, it's almost as if with the kind of constitution that we have and how things run, even when there are undesirable aspects that are in different parts, whether it's the public sector or private sector, this country has a way of ridding itself of that which is hurtful the most somehow. And we've been able to get through it. And I think we need to decide and put ourselves in the psychological position that we will get through it, because we have before. We have before, no, not even once, not even twice, but more. So the answer is
we've emerged.
Yes, we will emerge stronger even now. And we will, all the reasons that we've had, our assets in terms of what makes this a good country to invest in terms of legislation and protection of investment, and our JSE being the 19th largest by market capitalization, last I checked, in terms of the indicators, those things didn't go away suddenly because of what was happening in the past week and a half.
Lovely. Thanks, Toni, for that. Just to bring Thami into the conversation as well. Thami, how do we reset the mentality? As you've said, that entrepreneurship is deemed as a default or as a profession or as a career of second choice. How do we reset mentality so that people see entrepreneurship as a way of life and as a way of living?
Thanks, my brother. I think for starters, exactly talking about resetting, one, we have to start believing in ourselves as South African entrepreneurs, or as a country as a whole. Even that thing of DFIs, of foreign direct investment, FDIs rather. You know, we need FDIs, you know, to increase and pump our economy, but we cannot be seen as if we are crying foul to say that we cannot do anything internally, as if all that we are depends on DFIs. By the way, if I can just share with attendees, when I did my Master of Science, my study was directly on foreign direct investment. And I was precisely looking at the value of foreign direct investment to SMMEs when in the context of KZN. I was not doing in the country as a whole. But the reality is, as again Toni was saying, previously when you look at the big corporates, when they look at entrepreneurship, I mean, they'll do more of CSI, your social CSI. But when you look at entrepreneurship, nowadays there's a rise in the BE scorecards, and then people have to get entrepreneurship development scores, and then they try and do something. But if you go and study those foreign-owned companies, which I did, you know, a whole number of them in KZN, more than 10 of them, you'll find that their enterprise development strategy and the programs on the ground are really very minimal. Now, the reality, all that it says, yes, we can still engage and say, as the DFIs come in, can they also look at increasing on how they support us in the entrepreneurial, you know, growth in the country? So as the likes of other programs that government has put on board, from funding to enterprise support and so forth. But as you say, from a reset point of view, we need to believe in ourselves as entrepreneurs, more so if we are Enactus alumni. I mean, this is entrepreneurship 101. You get it, you are on entrepreneurship 101, regardless whatever degree you're doing throughout university. It's the best way you learn entrepreneurship. When you go out there, those projects that you do and you go on competition with should not just be about, hey, I want to go to the World Cup. But it should be really about to say, let's reset our mindset. Even when we go to the World Cup, let's show the world that South Africa can do it. We believe in ourselves. We've got entrepreneurial ideas. As a financial analyst, I'm still studying. I've traveled to countries like China. I've seen things wherein students, while at university, they build viable, fundable concept wherein angel investors and some of commercial investors will come in and say, you've got this concept, we are ready to put R1 million. You can start this concept with buying equity on your concept while you are a student. You are doing this thing now, and we're going to grow with you. We take 50%, you take 50%, we put in the money. Now we are saying to our young entrepreneurs, build things that are going to have that confidence. We've seen before. I interact with the likes of your Lebu Gunguluza. You know, we've seen them running things like your Lion's Den, which is like the pitches. We need more of such things in South Africa, and they cannot only be done by government. They need to be done even at a level of organization like Enactus South Africa. I'm saying we've done this thing as Enactus where students do projects and what have you, but we can also talk to headquarters and say, well, while universities compete, why can't we have pitch sessions where some of these individual Enactus students now, they've got ideas, and then through the SIFE platform, we bring an investor called Thami Zondi, we bring an investor called Lebu Gunguluza, and we have these Enactus students presenting their real entrepreneurship opportunities. That's why I'm saying if you look at our landscape, we haven't really, even we ourselves, whether we government, whether we stakeholders, whether we civil organization like Enactus, we haven't really say, let's hold the bull by its horn. Let's practicalize this thing. Yes, we've done enough from an Enactus point of view to make sure that we expose our students, but I think we need to do more. That's how we're going to change the mindset and make sure that people really don't see entrepreneurship as a default, but as a way to go.
Thanks greatly, Thami. I mean, with half of the population, with half of young people unemployed, it's really incumbent now. It's important upon young people to really take entrepreneurship as a way of life. But Toni, you spoke about this collective. I'm really loving this term, the collective efforts. But how do we dissolve the competitive edge? How do we dissolve the competitive tension that is there amongst young people to ensure present themselves as the collective effort? I mean, in my years as Enactus, DUT is few kilometers away from UKZN, but not even once have we considered, having that collaborative effort on a particular project. But if you go to overseas countries, I remember when I was in Malaysia, you'd see that one country will partner with another country for the betterment of that particular country. So this collective effort internationally, especially among SIFE teams, it's quite evident. And over the years, I'm seeing that it's gradually kicking in, but how do we really dissolve the competitive tension that is there? Because at the end of the day, I need to compete with you at nationals. And probably that competition might be a barrier for us, having or rooting these collective efforts that you referred to. So how do we dissolve the tension or the competitive urge that's there?
Okay, well, if you don't mind, before I get into the competitive aspect versus collaboration, there's a part that Thami mentioned that I think perhaps more important, is very important as well. And this is the education part, and at which point in one's education gets embedded the need and drive and principles of entrepreneurship, and the fact that it is not, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs have found themselves contextually because perhaps there's what else can I do type of thing, versus this should be our first go-to thing, but it's how we are groomed in the classroom and in our homes from a very young age that we that determines whether we're going to see that ideas that solve problems presented can bring you the livelihood even more than what traditional employment can do. But there are, and I'm not a fan of wanting to start by criticizing, but I think it's important to reflect and be able to be real about some of the things that really need to change for certain impact to be made in this space. And I think that's the education. Education, look, personally, I also come from a home where two parents are educators. There's no education or inspiring entrepreneurship that happens, especially in the basic education space. And that's where it matters most when the young is younger, because that shapes who you will become and how you will think and how you will view entrepreneurship. I really believe organizations, even like Enactus, I think there's more effort, concerted and intention that needs to be done to bring education to the table, to put entrepreneurship at the right level. It cannot be that inherently everyone has to learn X subject, but you find that entrepreneurship is like literally, I think it's probably like one fundraising day a year in some schools, if it exists. That's not grooming future entrepreneurs. And I think that's a very important discussion that needs to be had specifically, because I mean, I know it's not a new discussion, but I don't see that anything has moved. And I don't know if Thami would agree with me. I think perhaps in tertiary level, perhaps, I don't even know now, because I mean, obviously I'm not physically in that space, but I think there's much more to be done for this entrepreneurship. There is just so much more. that our education system can do to change that it needs to do. Not healthy to solve the competitiveness. I think we are human. I think some of what drives us is being able to do better than the last time. And competition is not necessarily because you need to be competing with the others. I think you can collaborate, and it will probably make you a better competitor to collaborate. There's better impact you can make with collaboration. I don't think you can. I don't think you need to take away the other for the other to exist. That's my opinion of it. I think we must remain competitive because somehow in our seeing what others are doing, that they're doing better than us, we find learning. So if we were to kumbaya it out totally, I think we would get a little bit mediocre as well. So you are a better competitor when you have been able to collaborate, simply because you make better impact when you've collaborated. And there's insights that you have that you wouldn't have with waiting with. So I think it's healthy, and as long as we, as long as we keep it to a healthy way of competition, I'm also of the opinion that I don't think we take enough time to look back, because I think also, and this probably comes from the format of competition. I don't think there is enough we do to look back or sustain some of previous efforts that have been made. So that's possibly the downside to somewhere when something becomes so competitive that everybody almost wants to start their new thing. You know, everyone, when a new person arrives, they want to start the new thing and make their impact so that they can win. That's perhaps something we need to just probably mature a little bit out of slightly, because what happens is, I think you can't start all the time a new thing. Sometimes you have to grow bigger. Some of the things that were good that never reached maturity, perhaps because, you know, those who started this had to exit at some point. So I think there's something about saying, if we can look at even for Enactus, if we can look at the past, let's say just 3 to 4 years, winning Enactus chapters. If we can say if we can look back today, where are those projects now? That's another thing. I think that where in reality, where are the previous projects that were so great and had so much impact? Did the impact, was the success or impact sustained? I'll hold it there for now.
Okay, no, thanks greatly to Toni. There's a question here. Do you think the lack of entrepreneurship at school is due to lower literacy rate of parents? I think that will be for you, Mr. Zondi, because you've touched based on this particular one. Do you think it's because of the literacy rate of our parents? Hence, we've got a poor or a thriving entrepreneurship culture in South Africa?
I don't think so. Categorically, I don't think so, Setu. I'm saying that, can we say that the few number of people who graduated as doctors is because our parents are illiterate, or even vice versa? If we've got more doctors, does it mean that it's because our parents are educated? Look, our past does not define us. More so where we come from doesn't define us. So that's another thing. If you're talking entrepreneurial landscape in SA, we need to move away from this culture of being a lamenting nation that always cries about everything. I've been using since the start of this webinar a term holding the bull by its horn.
look, we cannot lie to each other. Entrepreneurship is not an easy journey. So I mean, young people themselves, in fact, the hope is in young people, the under 35s, 18 to 35. That's where the hope of entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship again is about innovation. So who will be innovative? It's not our parents. But let me talk about the issue of entrepreneurship in schools, and then going on to universities and going on to what happens after universities. I'll make an example, going back to the whole issue of social compact that we spoke about earlier on. The department that I work for, Department of Economic Development in KZN, together with the Department of Education, we've partnered with an NGO called Kasi to Kasi Development Organization. They've got a program called the Kasi to Kasi Schools Program. Within that, there's something called Operation Fundisa. And all we do in terms of Operation Fundisa, we go across schools in KZN and inculcate a culture of entrepreneurship, teaching. You'll be surprised. I've got a child in primary school, and we interact with some of the parents of these kids. They are unemployed, they're illiterate, so it's not a factor. One of the child of a primary school, I think it's a grade 6 learner. She's so good in maths, and then she says, "I'm always helping kids in my school. Now I want my YouTube channel to do this." This is a township school, you know. So entrepreneurship, when it's inculcated, it can really happen, and it does not matter the background of our parents. Secondly, once you've done the inculcation, because yes, you can motivate learners at school and students at universities, but are there programs to support them to take those entrepreneurial ideas forward? For instance, as the province of KwaZulu-Natal, under our department, we've got what we call public entities, which you can liken it to what is called SOEs at a national level. We've got a public entity called Itala Development Finance Corporation. With Itala, we've got a program called Inkunzi Isematoleni. It's a deep Zulu for those who don't understand Zulu. But all in all, what it says is that, you know, a stronger person or a future a future hero, a future successful person is within the people that we are grooming today, if I can try and translate it literally. So Inkunzi Sematoleni, we run the program where you don't even have to have a business, a registered business, especially as a school-going learner. We just want your grand idea. And we're not giving you big money, you know, giving you 50,000, 20,000 to start, you know, up to 200,000. Those are just small ideas. Yes, of course, we've got funding when now people say, I've been at university, I've been an Enactus student, you know, I've been a BMF affiliate, all this organization. And then now I've got an idea. Then I need a bigger fund because I've tested my idea. Now I need more money. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, DFIs from a government point of view that, you know, give loans. But there's also some of the grant programs in our different provinces, whether you're talking KZN or you're talking Gauteng. You've got the likes of your JEP in Gauteng, your Gauteng entrepreneurship, you know, entrepreneurship program. There's a lot. In each and every province, there's different programs. So it depends where the person is to say, in my province, let me knock at the relevant Department of Economic Development and take the idea that I started as an Enactus student and make it real. But again, it goes back to what again Toni was saying and what we keep on saying, that collaborative effort. Unfortunately, the nature of us as Enactus, because our students think that it's about competition, it's about winning and going to the World Cup. Yes, that is very important. It teaches you competitiveness because entrepreneurship is about that. But equally so, there's the other side of the coin, which is collaboration. In entrepreneurship, you also thrive through collaboration. Do certain things for your competition, you know, and make sure you can go and compete amongst other universities and win and probably go to, you know, World Cup and see the world. That's fine. It's another part of the growth. But collaborate with people now for real entrepreneurship ideas that can live beyond institutions of higher learning, that can be funded by these various programs that government has. And you also have a role to go back, as I said earlier on, to schools and teach the learners in primary and in high school, regardless of what their parents know. You have a duty. You are a student. You yourself, maybe you do not come from a well-to-do family, but now you are a student of a higher learning. So you have a duty to do something, you know, and we all as a collective can do something if we really take entrepreneurship serious.
Lovely. Thanks greatly, Mr. Zondi. Can you please define a 21st century entrepreneur for me, Mr. Zondi? What is this 21st century entrepreneur? What's the characteristics if we were to rethink and to reimagine entrepreneurship in the 21st century? How would you rethink or reimagine entrepreneurship in the 21st century?
There's a lot of ways I can explain or reimagine a 21st century entrepreneurship, but I'll just highlight a few. When I was in high school doing grade 10 as a commerce student or as a commerce learner, we were told, am I still audible?
Yes, you are, Mr. Zondi.
All right, yeah. We were told that at grade 10, during our days, we were told that the role or the aim of an entity to a business is to make profits. It used to end there. What is the aim of a business is to make profits. That is still true, but in the 21st century, it's beyond just making a profit. Because as a 21st century entrepreneur, you need to care about the environment in which you do your business. Hence, you need to do ethical business. In everything that you do, it must be ethical, because you then understand that if you are doing a business that's gonna deplete our natural endowment, or that's gonna cause any problem to, we are faced with global warming nowadays, that business of yours, that profit that you're making is not going to be for long. So as a 21st century, you are now more looking to other things more than just a profit. Hence, we also talk of saying, as an entrepreneur, you also have a duty to go back and plow to your community. Hence, in the 21st century, we talk of social entrepreneurs. That is an entrepreneur of the 21st century. But beyond that, we are talking of the 4IR. Yes, we've been forced to dive into 4IR because of COVID-19. We are doing this webinar online. Maybe previously, before 2020, very few attendees would have come in on this platform, but people are used to it now. Now, an entrepreneur of the 21st century is somebody who understands that the world has become smaller. I don't need to be in LA to do business in LA. As you were reading my profile, one of the things that are my passion and that I do it as part of my work, I love the creative industry amongst other sectors that contributes to our economy. So I do a lot in the film and television industry, and I love going to LA every year. It's my homie. I feel, it's nice. But having not to go to LA does not mean that I cannot do business, and engage with people and get the young filmmakers in South Africa opportunities. I'm on my emails, I'm on my Skype, I'm on my in any platform, and I'm still getting opportunities for young people who are filmmakers and television producers in LA while I'm sitting in my bedroom. So that is an entrepreneur of the 21st century. You reimagine things and see that there are more possibilities than there were before.
Lovely. Thanks greatly, Mr. Thami. Then, Toni, can I have your closing remarks? Because of time, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of time. Can I have your closing remarks, and can you prepare yours, Mr. Zondi, as well?
Okay. I think from me, it would be one, to add first to the 21st century entrepreneur. I think adaptability and agility is one of the most important things right now, because I think the past year and a half maybe has proven to us that things can flip on and from standing on their feet to stand on their head in a moment. And often we have very little control, if any, of the environment. But I think agility is one of those things that we need. We cannot be paralyzed by change, as I think traditionally things used to be. So we must be agile people, just to share. I'm in the space of consulting at the moment, and it's engaging stakeholders, engaging communities, and it's a very physical activity. It's you require to interface, eyeball meetings with people, being there. And during the month of March, no, not March, during the month of April and May, I think, like many people, my space had to face the reality of saying, are we now irrelevant for our current work and clients that we have? Because this is what we do. We are stakeholder engagement and community engagement professionals. Does being locked in our houses change that now? And remember, yes, you can have stakeholders that have access to what we all in this meeting have access to, which is either Wi-Fi data and devices that can help us connect, but not communities. We still have very much issues of, in as much as they are predominantly devices that are smart currently, but economic circumstances of many people in our communities would not have them have the accessibility to be in a webinar for 3 hours like this, because they just may not have data. And some of our provinces are still very, very much largely rural. So even for those few that may have even the data, the signal is just so bad where they are. You know, that's our reality. But that period we had to face, and we are a team of 25 people currently, and we had to face a real situation of, are we actually going to be able to work and bill for the work that we do? But it wasn't, we can't think of it at the end like the money. You know, I think Thami mentioned earlier, traditionally when we learned about entrepreneurship, it was like a business exists to make money. So we had to go to the drawing board and say, we must now find our relevance and be able to find ways to still impact the space so that we can live, because that's what it was about. But it took that agility in that moment of what felt like near desperation for us to come up with thoughts that we've never had to come up with. You know, I never had service providers that I work with that are like technology people, telecommunications, but now that's all the people I'm talking to every day. You know, we can now be able to do a community engagement in a semi-rural community virtually. It takes a whole lot more effort than a Zoom link, but it is possible. But we had to find those possibilities. So there is literally nothing that is impossible, is what I learned. And it was an easy saying to relate to because we hear it often. But have we really faced situations, and perhaps more recently we have, that require us to find possibility where there was not such before? One, and I think from a place of closing, I would really like to encourage us all to be more conscious of how do we in our spaces impact entrepreneurship. And it's not coming from a place of feeling sorry for anyone. It's coming from a space that says, my purchase decision is going to be spent on an equally, if not better quality product, but the determining factor must be, is this by a business that is local? Either to, whether it's to my community or to the country, I think we have to start somewhere. So I think it lies on us. We need to take these things personally. They cannot be discussions that are at a high level that end up at the conferences and seminars that we go to, spoken about or spoken to by people with big titles and big responsibilities. I think we need to break the responsibility and bring it to each one of us. Every single one of us have a role to play if we are going to see the South Africa we want to see. That's
Thank you. Thanks greatly, Toni. Over to you, Mr. Zondi.
Thank you so much, Setu. And thank you so much to Toni and the rest of the panelists and the attendees, organizers of these webinars, SIFE SA and SIFE globally. Thank you so much for affording us the opportunity And I really hope that people who joined in, they gain something. And my prayer is that it does not end today, and we really each go in our little corners and do something, you know, around entrepreneurship. And hopefully now that we've met, you know, I've seen some of the attendees' names. We're gonna search for each other on those LinkedIn profiles, on those Twitter profiles, follow each other, and then continue the conversation of entrepreneurship and really come up with great ideas, bounce ideas. But most importantly, I just want to stress in my closing remarks to say that colleagues must remember that when it comes to entrepreneurship, is all about starting early. And as I said, that Global Entrepreneurship Monitor shows that our entrepreneurship early stage is still very low in South Africa. Let us start early. Let us make sure that our little sisters and brothers start early. Remember, in entrepreneurship, you wanna fail once or two times. I can tell you, being a government employee myself, I've tried a couple of investments. Some of them have lost money. You know, I mean, it's good. It's a journey if you're still young. You know, so start early, guys. Do this, and let's continue the conversation beyond what we're doing, just as groups, but as individuals. Let's interact, and then let's do something to change the entrepreneurial landscape in SA. Thank you so much, Enactus South Africa.
Okay, thanks greatly, Mr. Thami Zondi. Guys, that will bring towards the end of our segment. Thanks greatly. On behalf of the Enactus Network, thanks Toni and Thami for the beautiful presentation, the thoughts, the guidance. Really, and you guys have paved the way, and I'm happy that you are captains in your own industries. So it's something that Nati we will emulate and stand for. Just in closure on my end, really we need to start today because the realities on the ground and the goal or iphupho leli sasilithengiswa ukuthi you'll have a corner office something that reality has been deferred. So it's upon each and every individual to start something namhlanje, as small as it is. It might be selling, but really youth unemployment is a mental attitude. It's an entitlement from our young people. If there is an ability to do something, to sell something, lao corner, please go for it. And just to fight the gains and to be an active participant in the economy. The realities have changed, and it will require us to adapt a totally different mindset, totally different from our predecessors back then. So really, we are who we've been waiting for. There's no other Messiah besides ourselves, and we can anchor ourselves out of any situation, out of any poverty-stricken situation that we find ourselves in. So it's really within our collective ability, but it starts with an individual. Lead your life, lead it effectively. Then when we combine, then we'll be a greater resource that will move the country forward. Thank you to the attendees for your time, and thanks to Enactus for forwarding me the opportunity to facilitate this particular session. With that being said, thanks, sharp, and be safe.